our weekly webinar, and this week it is a magical journey through the chakras. And one of my favorite topics, the magical journey through the chakras. This this week, in fact, yesterday, I've been teaching bioenergy for 30 years. 30 years ago, in a little clinic in Wicklow Street in Dublin, 15A Wicklow Street, up a couple of flights of stairs, right in the heart of Dublin City. I opened up, I worked in a healing center that eventually I owned with another person, but I started working in this little tiny healing center, and that was yesterday, 30 years ago, the 17th. And, all that time goes in a blip, and then at the same time, it doesn't. It's like, I feel like a book. I've lived many chapters in different places, in different countries, and different experiences. And it really is like such an honor to find something that you love and that you're still in love with 30 years later. It's such an honor to find that. And I think healing is the most beautiful gift that we can give ourselves. And I think, I don't think you can separate healing from spirituality. And I think that healing and spirituality is the most practical thing there is in our lives. And it often takes somebody's life to be falling apart to really proclaim that their health is their wealth, and or let me put it another way, health is wealth, right? And we often don't think of that until we get sick. And I guess I've had the experience of seeing a lot of people who've been sick, a lot of them for many years, and a lot of ill health and sickness. I like to call them blocked chakras. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. But with blocked chakras, if chakras stay blocked for a while, illness and sickness appears in the body. And when people are sick or they're ill, they always proclaim, I would do anything to get better, and if I get better, I'll do all these things to stay healthy. And I find when people are healthy, we just kind of take it for granted, and there's nothing like being in pain and then realizing how disruptive that is to your life. And being, how when people have low energy, how impactful something like that is in your life, where you don't have the energy to do things. And when you have good energy and vitality, it's so easy to take it for granted. And when energy is lost in the body and people suffer with chronic fatigue, and they've no energy and they've aches and pains all over their body, it's pretty incredible how in those moments, like I say, people would wish anything just to be healthy, And so that's our journey. Our talk into the chakras tonight is about the health and well-being of the chakras, and how chakras can be flowing, energy can be flowing, chakras can get blocked, we can get sick from those blockages. And it's not like your energy gets blocked and suddenly you're sick. It's like, I don't know that anybody wakes up one day and they're just ill. I don't know that happens. In my experience, I think that people get lots of warnings over time. And when they don't heed those warnings, they don't listen to it, they're not tuning in, they're not paying attention, that over time, that when the body breaks down, the body gave them lots and lots of warnings, but they just ignored everything. And I think that's true for everything, right? If somebody's in a relationship and the relationship just suddenly ends, it's probably very likely that there was a lot of signals or messages before the relationship ended. It probably wasn't just everything was wonderful and then it ended. it doesn't quite work that way. And I think the same, you don't go from like being really healthy to suddenly being really ill. There's a transition in between. There's lots of messages and lots of signals. And one of the things about the chakras is that you can kind of like, you can look at people's illness and know what chakra is blocked. But you can also look at chakras, and based on whether the energy is flowing or blocked, you could look at blocked chakras and then understand that that might lead to a particular illness in that part of the body. And it all relates to each other. So it's like, as you go through the 7 major chakras of the body, you can pick any one of those. Like you say, you pick the solar plexus, and you have like with the solar plexus, it's very much like the power center, right? So when a person has an emotional issue like a loss of power or victimhood, or they've given their power away, or they're having work difficulties and there's this power struggle on, it's not crazy to assume that over time, if those power issues are not resolved or processed, that over time that will affect that particular center that relates to the power, and that can affect the digestive system, which is one of the main things in that area, you know. And so when people have power issues, it's not uncommon that suddenly they start getting digestive issues. And the emotional side of that is you might be having trouble digesting what is happening in your life, right? You're having trouble processing and digesting it. So tonight I thought like I take a look at the five main things I've treated with bioenergy, like the top 5. How does that sound? And then relate to what chakras they relate to. And then maybe for the people tuning in, if maybe you can connect or relate to one of these top 5. So, you know, there's a lot of different ailments I treat, and I've treated ailments that I can't even pronounce the name of, you know, but there's lots of different things I've treated. But I was looking tonight to kind of like sum it up into, well, what's the 5 most common things that I treated, and like very successfully. But it's also like, I mean, there's conditions like arthritis responds really well to bioenergy, asthma responds really well, eczema responds really well, even multiple sclerosis responds really well. They respond really well to bioenergy. But the most 5 common things I've treated are the most common things I've treated with bioenergy. I probably have treated more people with this than anything else. And number 1 thing, are you ready? Drum roll, is back pain. Back pain is, you know, 30 years of doing bioenergy. And what's the number 1 thing I've treated in that period of time is back pain. And the most common back pain is actually lower back pain. And when we look at lower back pain, I see some hands going up there. When we look at lower back pain, it tends to like emerge into the lower lumbar area, which is it's the sacral chakra, but there's also a relationship to the root chakra. So it's just kind of in between the root and sacral. And so both chakras are kind of slightly affected, even though we'll relate the sacral chakra in some degrees to the lower lumbar, and the root chakra to the coccyx. The 2 of them feed into for back pain. So with lower back pain, I mean, a lot of people who've come to me with lower back pain over the years, some of them have their back pain for 10 years, some for 20 years. Literally a man, really nice man I'm treating today, I was treating him earlier today, and he's had back pain for 25 years. And now his back pain is so bad, he's on morphine and they can't get rid of his pain. And that's, so pretty severe cases. I've treated, people with multiple surgeries on their back, multiple types of back pain. But the reason I just bring that up is that, a lot of times the people we're treating with bioenergy are people who've tried everything. They've done everything. They've gone to lots of different people. They've been to the chiropractor, the physio, the massage. They've had years of massage, physio, chiropractic work, osteopathy, and they still have their back pain. And, as we break down our webinars over the weeks and months to follow, my intention is to give a very full explanation, understanding of how energy translates into illness and sickness in the body, and how we turn that around and become healthy and well. And, as we kind of like look to summarize it or sum it up a little bit today, one of the things about lower back pain is this relationship with the root and sacral. It tends to have a lot to do with trust. And right deep into the lower chakra is the trust. It's the feeling of feeling supported. And I would say, in my experience, I've treated more men with lower back pain than women. And I've treated more women with shoulder pain than men. So there's a relationship here, like why women are getting more shoulder problems, men are getting more lower back problems. And one of the things that I've come to think is that the lower back tends to have a lot to do with our finances. It's not just support, but it's financial support. And generally, and I'm really generalizing here, generally women will, in terms of support, they tend to, when they have blockages around support, it tends to be around responsibility, like feeling responsible and taking on a lot of responsibilities. We even say carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Well, when we carry a lot of responsibilities, a lot of burdens, even, we sort of carry them on the shoulder, And so when it's more like not feeling safe or not feeling financially supported, it's like the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath us and we lose our balance. Like it's like, people talk about a slip disc, it's like as if the rug got pulled out from underneath you, you lost your job or something and the financial support is gone. So, obviously men and women can both suffer with lower back pain, but I find it tends to be around finances. And then the shoulders tend to be around support, around like responsibilities and support and such. So this area of the root chakra, this like saying that it's related to finances and to trust, when we're working in bioenergy, we're clearing out the blocked energy in the root and sacral chakra. We're clearing out the energy in the root and the sacral. But one of the things is that it not only clears the physical pain from the lower back, but because we're working in the chakra that relates to the emotion that's causing it, we're releasing the fear, which is what is causing the problem and also keeps the problem reoccurring. And then balancing out the trust. Like fear is a natural thing. I know some people say like, oh, we shouldn't have fear and shouldn't have guilt or shouldn't have shame. It's like all these things are okay. Like even shame, like shame gets a bad name. Like people shame. Like you shouldn't have shame. They shame it, right? Fear is normal. Guilt is normal. Shame is normal. Grief is normal. All these things are normal. But also so is trust, and so is joy, and so is peace and love and forgiveness and compassion, all of these things are normal too. And our capacity to feel and our capacity to integrate those feelings allows us to experience a wider range of emotions. And when we don't allow ourselves to experience, because we are like, we're physical and we're emotional and we're mental. We're all the things, you know, we're also multi-dimensional, powerful, infinite Christ consciousness, spiritual beings, but that's another talk. But we're all the things, but we're also deeply emotional beings. And when we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions and to express those emotions and to allow them to be part of our life, then what happens is they start to congest and they start to block and they get stuck. And the energy system, the energy is flowing through our body through these 7 major chakras or points of greater electromagnetic energy. They start to close down, they start to block up, they start to congest. And so in terms of back pain, when the sacral chakra closes up, it's kind of like a flower and it closes up, then people will tend to have weaker energy in the back. The energy keeps getting congested and blocked. It's like a point where the traffic in a junction keeps blocking up. Like the traffic light is not working and the traffic just keeps blocking up in a junction. So when the energy is not flowing freely through the chakra, it's like the communication, like we'll say the traffic lights get turned off. And then everything just blocks in that area. Everything keeps congesting in that area. And so then the back pain, when people get this reoccurring back pain and it can come at any time, and you know, they weren't even lifting that something heavy, or they just twisted in the back of the car, and you know, it's always the emotional energy that is leading the way. And when we're not feeling, expressing, or integrating that emotional energy, the pendulum goes too far in the other way. So by the pendulum, I mean that we have fear and we have trust, and the pendulum tends to swing between fear and trust. And when we're in the middle, we call it the balance chakra. You don't have to be in like all trust all the time. You don't have to be in all fear all the time, but the life is always like swinging between the two. But it's when we go too far in one direction and we don't integrate the other that it's like the pendulum goes off the scales, right? It tops over. So in terms of our journey through the chakras, the main condition that shows up for the certainly in my clinic is back pain, and the chakra for that is the sacral chakra. And like I said, it has to do with a lack of financial support, and that has nothing to do with money, just so you know. It has to do with the lack of trust that we're supported and that we're taken care of. And so when we're clearing the energy from the lower back, like we're clearing the pain out of the lower back, but we're also clearing the energy from the front of the sacral, which is so important, because when we clear the energy from the front of the sacral, we're also releasing the emotional energy that's being built up there. We also have to release the emotional energy from the heart, and we also have to release the mental energy from the brow. So there's different relationships between the chakras. And so in terms of bioenergy, we're releasing the physical pain, the emotion that comes with it, the emotional connection, and the mental connection. So there's a process of unravelment for healing to take place and for an ailment not to come back again. The second most popular thing I've treated over 30 years, I'm going to give my number 2. And I've already just touched upon it. And it was shoulder pain. So upper back pain, shoulder pain. I've treated so many people, so many people with upper back and shoulder pain, or even one shoulder as well. But basically upper back pain is, I sometimes think it's like it's a stress area for people, right? Like it's a number one, like even though lower back pain is the main thing I've treated, but I would say like with shoulder pain, it's probably the most common stress area. So when people feel stressed, and I think part of that stress is if you feel burdened, you know, if you're doing something and you're like you could sit, people say, Michael, the reason I have neck problem is because I'm sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day. And I'm just going to say that's just not true, because there's so many other people who sit at a computer for 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day or 18 hours a day. You could have someone involved in research, cancer research, and they're working 18 hours a day on a computer for 6 months, you know, in a row, barely a day off. And they get up from the computer every evening, they barely eat and they sleep a few hours and they're perfectly healthy. Why? Because they're passionate about what they're doing. They're interested in what they're doing. But you take someone in a job who doesn't want to be there, you don't need to wait 8 hours for them to be on the computer. They're on the computer for 2 hours. If they're doing, I don't know, data entry, unless that's your thing and you love it. But if someone is working on a computer and they don't want to be doing it, of course they're going to get neck and shoulder pain. You feel burdened. It's a pain in the neck. Literally, it's a pain in the neck. Doing this is a pain in the neck. So of course you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in that area. So our number two thing, shoulder pain, is the most common. I would say again, more, in my experiences, it has been, I think women especially worry about their children a lot, and they carry their children on their shoulders, literally, you know, for want of another way to say that. Now, my number three for the most common thing I've treated in bioenergy, or most popular thing I've treated. And this one, I would say, when I first started in bioenergy 30 years ago, I would say it wasn't very common. It wasn't, I didn't really treat that many people with it. I wouldn't have put it in my top 5 30 years ago, but now I would say I'm treating, here's the thing, I'm treating more people at the moment with this than back pain. I've treated more people with back pain than anything else in 30 years, but in the last 10 years, this has been the number one thing I've been treating in the bioenergy clinics. Are you ready? Anxiety. Boom. Anxiety. Absolutely, in my experience, on the rise for people. It's like panic attacks, anxiety, stress, right? Like stress, a level of stress where it's actually harming people, it's hurting people, they become dysfunctional, they're not able to function. Anxiety is huge. And also a lot of young people, like a lot of, you know, people in their 20s, early 20s, you know. And sometimes I wonder if like the increase in technology is also like leading to an increase in stress, you know. I mean, I like to think that technology should be taking our stress away. I like to think that technology should make our life easier. But I think it's also important to realize that when we're around people and we're with people and we interact with people, it reduces our stress. And when we interact with people through technology, you know, it's great to have like that communication, but it's like sometimes I think of it like technology will help me, you know, have a conversation with my father in Ireland, but it disconnects me from the person who's right in front of me, you know, as I hold the phone between the two of us and I'm texting someone else. So technology can bring us closer to the people who are further away, but sometimes it takes us further away from the people who are close to us, right? And so I think that this rise of anxiety, I sometimes wonder, is it technology? Is it just the pace of life and people living in a more sympathetic state? So over the last few weeks, we've touched upon the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and how the nervous system is like, we wanted to be in a more parasympathetic state. Like, it should work together, like the sympathetic and the parasympathetic should work together. But we want to have a bit more of the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest and healing. We don't want to be so too dominantly in the sympathetic, which is going to be more, it's going to be a little bit more like fight, flight, freeze. And it's okay to go into that, but we want to be able to come out of it. But so many people are living in that. And I think that when it comes to anxiety, this is another sign of people being really caught up in the sympathetic nervous system, and as a bioenergy practitioner, we're teaching people some breathing techniques, because breath is so important when it comes to something like anxiety. But in my experience, where the most important chakra for treating anxiety, it has to be the solar plexus chakra. And it has to be the solar plexus, even though we associate breathing and breath with the heart chakra, that will help balance the solar plexus. But it's the solar plexus chakra where people have given their power away. They've disconnected from themselves. They've disconnected from nature. We've disconnected from each other. And the solar plexus is often that when we first start losing our relationship with ourselves. And when we lose our relationship with ourselves, I think that anxiety is just it's just a side effect of us losing that relationship with ourselves. And what happens when we start losing the energy and our power, because the solar plexus is the power center, so as we open up through the chakras gift us with different things. And the solar plexus chakra, like, it gifts us with power, right? Like with our sense of courage and strength and inner wisdom and inner connection and our ability and our capacity to stand up for ourselves. So there's a real beauty, like the solar plexus, also our passion, there's some negative connotations. We can associate the ego and stuff with the solar plexus, but each of the chakras are part of the magical journey, right? So the solar plexus is definitely not all bad. I mean, it can be very controlling, and it can be very judgmental. So we can, or one might say we can be controlling or judgmental, and that will show up as as a solar plexus chakra that is very excessive. So the more excessive the solar plexus is, then we've got too much fire in the solar plexus. So each of the chakras have an element, and the element has to be maintained in a balance. So if you think of the fire, it's like you're the fire keeper of your own solar plexus chakra. And if you're not in charge of your fire, then if that fire gets out of your furnace, then you could maybe your anger, your blame can get projected out onto other people. So it's really important that we're managing our fire energy and not projecting our energy onto other people. But what happens when the solar plexus gets blocked is it's not uncommon that the compensation for that is that the brow chakra goes into excess, because there's a very direct link between the brow chakra and the solar plexus chakra. So much so that we say that the solar plexus is the abdominal brain. So the left brain, the left side of the brain, and the solar plexus are very much linked in together, just as the right side of the brain and the heart chakra are linked in together. So there's all these different connections through the body. And just to give you another kind of example, like your root chakra is also connected not just to the lower like tailbone and spine, but also connects to your feet and your hands. And then your sacral chakra is not just connected to the area of your sexual organs and your pelvic area, but your sacral chakra also connects to your wrists and your ankles. You know? And your solar plexus, this power center that we're talking about, that's not just related to the area of the digestive system and the liver and the pancreas, but it's also the area, the solar plexus is also related to the elbows and knees. And that's why often when people have a loss of power or they're angry, it's not uncommon that they bang their knee or they hurt their elbow. You know, it's like they have a fight with someone, or row with someone, an argument, and they literally walk away and bang their knee off the table. It's literally the knees and the elbows are related to your power, you know. Now we're just kind of touching upon these things, but like in the bioenergy system, this is all part of what we're just like glimpsing into little bits of what we touch upon in the level 2 bioenergy practitioner training. So level 2 bioenergy practitioner training, the personal development side of it and the training side of it is a magical journey through the chakras, where we go into each of the chakras and unravel the chakras and go into the healing of the chakras for ourselves. And you're going into the healing of the chakras for yourself, so that rather than learning it for other people, if you do the work on yourself, then you have an understanding of what other people are going through, and then you know what chakra to work on. So rather than just train people in the chakras to work on other people, the idea of the magical journey through the chakras is go into the journey yourself, discover each chakra yourself, ask the chakras to open up to you, ask the elements related to the chakras. So like the root chakra is the element of earth, and we connect with earth and we ask the elements of earth to teach us, you know. We connect with the element of water for the sacral chakra, and we ask the water to teach us. We connect to the element of fire with the solar plexus, and we ask the fire to teach us. We connect with the element of air with the heart chakra, and we ask the air to teach us. And the lessons that emerge in bioenergy are very natural lessons, where nature herself brings us into harmony and teaches us when we come into alignment. It's the second relationship. The first relationship is your relationship with yourself. We want to return to right relationship with ourselves. The second relationship is coming into right relationship with nature. So as we return back into right relationship with nature, nature as our elder and our teacher, that she teaches us, and we invite that in through the journey through the chakras. We invite nature to teach us through the elements. And as we come back into harmony with nature, then the third relationship, which is our relationship to each other, naturally comes into balance, right? Because when we're in harmony, like most imbalances in relationships are people's own wounding, their own problems. And so when we come into harmony with the relationship within ourselves, and we do the work on ourselves, we're not projecting our stuff onto other people. And so much of healing is people projecting their stuff onto others, or people having other people's stuff projected onto them. And how would you say it? Like wounded people wound people, right? Like it's hurt, you know, hurt people. You could say it that way. That sounds better. Hurt people, you know? And so, but also healthy people heal people, you know? Also, when you feel love, that love reaches out and touches other people and brings love into their life, you know? So just as wounds can wound others, you know, when we start healing our wounds, love, joy, peace can also help heal others. It can bring people to other states. So coming back to our third most popular thing that I would say that we're treating in bioenergy right now is anxiety. or sorry, I mean to say, like, it's the third thing on my list as the most common thing I've treated, but now I'm saying it's the number one thing that people are coming for, even more than back pain. And like, my success rate with back pain is like 95% success. So I get, like, you know, people want to come to me for back pain, and even with that success rate, there's more people coming with anxiety. That has to say something about the state that the world is in, right? And so, and I kind of think, like, you know, the world is a bit crazy, and it maybe will continue to get a bit crazy, but the solution is always the same. We have to come back into our center. We got to breathe. We've got to breathe and walk our way back into the center, you know, and we got to bring our internal energy system, our biofield, our biochakras, our bioenergy system. We got to bring them back into balance. We've got to come into a right relationship with our own energy and with our own chakras, with our own pendulum, you know, and then we got to come back into right relationship with nature. We got to learn from nature. We got to reconnect with nature. We got to become one with nature. And then we come back into relationship with each other. And the strangest one is that what I found is that the more we're in harmony with the relationship within ourselves, then our relationship with other people tends to balance themselves out, you know, by default, right? You know, so the anxiety one, it is generally a block in the solar plexus plus a block in the brow chakra. So you got to, on, like, from a bioenergy perspective, you got two specific areas to work on. And then you can actually even associate a third chakra, which would be the root chakra. So the root chakra, whenever there's ongoing problems, the root chakra is always going to be affected. When it comes to anxiety, the brow chakra is always going to be affected because there's a lot of mental thinking, right? Like, it's, if you were to take, say, depression, and you were to take anxiety, and this is just my understanding after working with it for 30 years, you know, whether it's right or wrong, this is just my understanding. When people live too much in the past, they tend to suffer with depression. And when people live too much in the future, they're worrying too much about what's going to happen, what's coming. When people worry and live too much in the future, they tend to suffer with anxiety. So depression, living too much in the past. Anxiety, living too much in the future. It's, look, you can't live in the past and you can't live in the future. You're only here, you're only ever here now, right? It's like breathing. You can't breathe from the past and you can't breathe from the future. You can only breathe from this moment right now. This moment is the only thing that exists. Nothing else is real. Like, you can't go back and change the past. You can't do anything about the past. You can only live in this moment right now. However, when people are suffering anxiety, they're not in this present moment, or they're too caught up worrying about what's going to happen, and the brain is now looping. It's connecting with that fear of, like, what's going to happen, what if this happens, and the brain goes into overdrive, and the person loses their power. And when you listen to them communicate or speak, there's a very much sense, this is happening to me, I don't want this is happening to me, I'm a victim of this. There's a total loss of power. And so healing is helping people reclaim that power, coming back into the solar plexus, healing the solar plexus, healing this beautiful solar plexus that gives us our fire and our power, the warmth. Like, fire gives us our warmth in our body. If you had no heat in your body, you'd be dead. I mean, think of a dead person, they're freezing cold, right? The very thing that can hurt us also heals us. The fire has the capacity to transform and heal and empower people. So the very person who's suffering with anxiety, when the chakra is balanced, when the chakra balances itself out, when that energy point restores itself, and the fire comes back into check. Maybe the fire wasn't burning brightly enough. They needed a bit of wood on the fire. Maybe they needed some fuel on the fire and they couldn't find it. And when we get the energy flowing and moving through the chakras, and the solar plexus starts to, when the solar plexus starts to like open up and starts to flow, and the fire starts to now regulate itself, then the person comes back into their power. And that's the same with chronic illness. Like all chronic illness, there's a blockage in the solar plexus chakra. And so the recovery of any person from chronic illness has to be them returning into their power and self-responsibility. Too many people looking for permission to get better, right? Too many people like, oh, I need the doctor to tell me I can get better, or I need someone to tell me, the specialist, or someone to tell me I'm going to get better. You tell yourself you're going to get better. You give yourself permission. How about that for an idea? Boom. You decide that you're going to get better. You have no control over the outcome, but no one can stop you from deciding, I decided I'm going to get better. That's your thought to have. That's your, too many people looking for permission, right? So what do you think, doctor? What do you think? My chances not looking good. Don't give that to someone else. It's also when people recover from any kind of illness or sickness for any length of time, there's something in them that shifts, where the mind shifts, and they're like, I'm in charge of my body. And they'll have medical treatment and stuff, but they're like, something is shifted in them, and then the medical treatment is more effective for them. In terms of anxiety, as people find their power again, they come back into their power center. What happens is when the solar plexus comes back into its balance, it starts to balance out the brow chakra. And why is it so important to balance the brow? Because the brow is like, when the brow is chaotic, we're chaotic, right? And not that the brow is your mind. So it's not that your mind is in your body. You're when we talk about mind, there's different ways to describe it, and we're in some ways just talking about thought, but your mind is not inside of you. You're inside of your mind. There's another idea for you, right? Consciousness is not inside of us. People think, oh yeah, my brain, my thoughts, that's where I am, but consciousness isn't inside of you. You're inside of consciousness. Your body exists inside of consciousness. Your mind that we think of in terms of like that we think it, your mind is inside of consciousness. There is nothing that doesn't exist outside of consciousness. Think about it. Nothing exists outside. Everything exists inside of consciousness, right? And so we, in the Western world, we have this kind of idea, everything's separate, but in fact, this isn't a new concept I'm giving to you. I mean, this has been taught by the yogis for thousands of years. Everything exists in consciousness, right? So now we come to like the brow chakra. When the mind is organized, it organizes the body. And so when people are suffering with anxiety, they've got to get a hold of the thought process. They got to balance out the fire in the power center, which is the solar plexus, and they got to balance out the brow chakra, right? Because if the brow chakra doesn't balance out, that excessive thinking, excessive worrying is just going to continue, right? So balancing out the solar plexus is really a miraculous cure for anxiety. It is so effective. And then on the secondary level, working on the brow chakra to reduce that over stimulus, and even like I said, there's so many different things that we treat with bioenergy, but in terms of like an over stimulus brow chakra, if you get children who are, say they're just suffering with nightmares, right? So I don't get it too often, but occasionally I get someone will bring their child in who is suffering with nightmares, and it's like almost like waking up with a full-on panic attack. And I just go straight clear the brow chakra, and because it's overstimulated. Whatever happened, who knows why it became overstimulated. But as soon as you bring that brow chakra into balance, literally the same night, the nightmares will stop. It's just purely this energy point here is overstimulated. And so you using the bioenergy method, you bring it back into balance, and nightmares literally will stop the same day. In terms of number 4 on the list that has made it into the list of the most common things I've treated in the last 30 years, I would say number 4 is headaches. And I feel very fortunate because I haven't never had back pain, really. I've never had shoulder pain. I've injured myself and did some injuries and then had them fixed, but I've never been a person that's really suffered with these conditions. And maybe I've taken it for granted, and then when I've had an injury or something, I'm realized, oh my God, how does someone live with this for like a year or 10 years? How is that possible? It's like, pain is so debilitating. And although like I feel fortunate to have very good health, I have definitely had injuries and accidents through martial arts and other things that I think gave me a lot of empathy and appreciation for how people suffer when they have pain. It's like unfortunately I've never suffered with headaches, but other than having a wisdom tooth out, I think that's the worst pain. And I'm like, if someone with a migraine, if they're saying that this is worse than a wisdom tooth, and they have that like every week or every month, for years, God, my heart goes out to them. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, it's like even just having the wisdom tooth for a very short amount of time was so painful, and to have someone who has migraines all the time, it's like I'm helping people recover from migraines, but I've never had one. And so, but if it's anything like a toothache, a bad toothache, then I don't know how people cope with it, and it's sometimes I don't often appreciate when their pain disappears and they're like, thank you so much for taking my pain away. And it's only when I had the toothache that I realized, oh my God, like how does one cope with that? And so the number 4 is in one of the most common ailments that people come in with is headaches. And that's from mild headaches to severe migraines once a month, every month for 20 years, to, headaches that have just been there for a few weeks, or people with ongoing headaches that have been there for years and years. And I think where I found like where the energy gets blocked, like I could maybe even, if someone wasn't suffering, if I didn't know someone suffered with headaches and I'm working through their energy field and I feel pressure in the head, I can literally identify if someone has shoulder pain, neck pain, head pain, because the way the energy blocks up in the brow and the crown chakra will literally it's like a traffic jam. It's literally telling you that, hey, there's a signal here that things are jammed up. It's like a red light with the traffic lights. And if the traffic light doesn't turn, people start beeping, they start getting angry. After a few moments, the traffic gets restless. And so when you're kind of checking out the energy, there's a kind of like a restlessness in the energy where you start to feel that the energy is not flowing, it's not free. And as you start to feel that, it feels like it's blocked up, kind of like the traffic jam. And so you can kind of determine, oh, maybe this person has headaches and stuff. And, you know, or it's going to lead to headaches, or it's going to lead to migraine because it's been blocked for so long that it's really just a matter of time. So energy that gets blocked, it's really just a matter of time before that blocked energy in some way affects the physical body, because the energy is directly linked to the 7 major glands of the body. The 7 major glands convert the energy into the frequency that moves through the organs, tissue, cells, blood, bones of the body. And when the right vibrational frequency is not moving through the body because of these blockages changing the vibrational frequency, then illness and sickness occur. So in terms of our magical journey through the chakras, the body has this natural like flow and movement of energy, that the energy flows and moves and circulates like the energy, like a river flowing. There's a natural flow of energy that moves through the organs, the tissues, the cells, the blood, the bones, a natural flow of energy, like a beautiful river vibrating and flowing through the body. And so just as this energy flows and moves through the body, if it flows uninterrupted, if it flows in balance, it will keep maintaining health and well-being in the body. And as the energy opens and flows, it starts to open up and expand our emotions and our capacity to feel. And our capacity to feel is so much more than what most people realize. We are like, as sentient beings, we are naturally not just empathic, but telepathic. We're naturally empathic and telepathic. We have an ability to communicate not just with nature, but with each other. And we have ability to be in this flow and this current. And one of the things that happens with headaches is it's like a closing down of the energy in the head. It's a closing down of communication. It's a disconnection. It's very much like, just as you have stress in the shoulders, you know, basically stress in the head is like a lot of like headaches is a lot of like where the vibrational energy of the thought process, whether that's negative thinking, is just it gets stuck. It's like a bottleneck. So energy needs to move up through the body and out through the top of the head. And when the energy moves up and it can't get out the top of the head, out through the crown chakra, then it starts to build up in the head. And so it's not uncommon that when there's back pain in the body and the back pain hasn't been resolved, that the pain continues to make its way up through the body. It's like a pressure cooker. You know those old pressure cookers where the pressure would build up and then the little steam valve would go, you know, and the pressure would have nowhere to go and it pushes out through the steam valve, right? So that's the old pressure cooker that maybe our parents used to make food in. I don't know if people still use them anymore, but it feels like a long time ago since people had pressure cookers, you know. But if you have one in your house now, sorry about that statement. But in terms of like the head, when our stress levels is building up and we're not relieving those stress levels, when we're not in harmony with the self, when we're not in harmony with nature, when we're not in harmony with each other, stress is building up in the body. It comes out as back pain. When that's not resolved, when it continues on, it continues up into the head. The energy has nowhere to go. It starts to block up in the head and it becomes like a pressure valve. And I think headaches are basically like a pressure cooker. Your head is trying to let off the buildup of steam. But I love treating people with headaches because, like, it's always like when you see people like come back in for sessions and they're like, God, my head is so much better. I'm not having any headaches. You know, it starts out with, oh, the headaches are a lot less, but they're still there. They're not as bad, but they're still there. And then within 2 or 3 weeks, they're like, you know, I've had no headache for a couple of days, but then it came back again. And then, you know, by 3-4 weeks in, they're like, I haven't had a headache all week, you know, and then that week becomes a month, and that month becomes a year, where they're like, the headaches haven't come back again. And that's when we get the energy flowing through the body, the natural flow of energy through the body, and we learn how to, I think of it as get out of our own way. When we're learning to get out of our own way, and we're not allowing this stress to build up in the body, then this free flowing, moving energy that moves and circulates and moves through us, it continues to flow and move, you know, in that way. So that's the headaches. And headaches, I would say brow chakra and crown chakra. So there is 2 chakras associated with it, the brow and the crown. Migraines are a little bit more the crown. A basic headache could be a little bit more the front. So if you get headaches that come from the back of the head, you got to work on the crown chakra. And then headaches that are appearing from the front of the head, you work on the brow chakra. So I mean, that's technical stuff. I mean, we're just in our webinar, we're just introducing people to the chakras and the magical journey through the chakras. And even though we talk about the magical journey through the chakras, I'm touching upon like on illness, but it's also because the chakras contain everything. When you discover like just like the solar plexus we're talking about, yeah, it can create anxiety, but it also is passion for life. It's enthusiasm for life. It's our infusion with God, you know. The heart chakra, just as we can experience grief and regret, we can also experience love, right? And I don't know that there's any opposite to love. Like, it's not love and regret. I think it's just there's love. Love has no opposite. It has no opposition. It just simply is. You know, boom. But coming back to our top 5, so we've done headaches, and then for number 5, the last one, the most common one as well that I treat, is low energy. People come to me with low energy, and to be honest, people go everywhere else first, but then eventually they come to bioenergy because they're like, well, you know, in the name bioenergy is the word energy, and so I think maybe that's why they come to me with low energy. And I've been very fortunate to help people turn their health around with especially chronic fatigue, you know, where people have been like in bed for a couple of years, and the bioenergies help get them out of bed, walking around, returning to their health, get their energy flowing and moving through their body. And if you were to ask me, well, what chakra is that? So now, like I said, you could look at a chakra, see what chakra is blocked, and know what potential ailments there are. And then you can also look at an ailment and then know what chakra it is. So in terms of low energy and chronic fatigue, they're just slightly different. When you're going to have 2 particular chakras related to low energy. Now, the main one that I found more than any other chakra is actually the solar plexus chakra for people with low energy. Now, people who've maybe read about the chakras or even understanding of the chakras, or for some of you that have studied the chakras, you might consider that the root chakra is the main chakra for low energy. And you're absolutely not wrong with that, because the root chakra is about vitality. It's the energy from nature. It's our relationship to Mother Gaia, Sophia. It's the entry point of the Earth's energy into the body. So it's about physical vitality. So absolutely, the root chakra is very important when it comes to the energy levels. It's very important for it to be working for a person to have good physical energy and vitality. And that is, you know, you might consider the main one for physical energy. However, it's not quite. It is significantly important, but for when it comes to something like chronic fatigue, as an example, it's actually the solar plexus chakra, because the solar plexus, what happens is that when you go to someone with chronic fatigue and you check their energy field, you find that they're not actually suffering from low energy, that the root chakra is working perfectly. They're not suffering with low energy. So then you're like, well, why are they feeling no energy when their root chakra is working perfectly? And it's because their solar plexus is jammed up. And so like the traffic jam, right? If you get a traffic jam, it's not that there isn't traffic there, it's just that it can't go anywhere. It can't move, right? So with people with chronic fatigue, it's not that they don't have energy, it's that their energy system is clogged up and the energy is not moving. They actually have lots of energy. People with chronic fatigue tend to have more energy than most people. Now, why would I say that? Well, you look at prior to them having chronic fatigue, most people who had chronic fatigue, they were pushing themselves too hard. And again, this is just my experience. The independent research of Michael, and just sharing my experience with you. But the independent research of Michael is that, you know, when I look at people's, like, how were they before they got sick, that they were often, they were basically pushing themselves too hard. They kept going. And then one day their body just stopped, like it went on strike. Like it went on a stroke. It's like their body just stopped. And the road to recovery from chronic fatigue, so is not giving them more energy, but it's about, it's like the pendulum has gone too far into too much doing, and now they're experiencing not being able to do anything. So when we talk about the pendulum in bioenergy, and I'll bring it up in all the webinars probably, when we talk about the pendulum, it's the universe always seeks balance. So if you're doing too much of one thing, the universe will find a way to bring you back to balance. And how it does it is it brings you to the opposite end of the spectrum. So when people they've been pushing themselves too hard and they haven't been listening to that, it's not uncommon then that they'll experience where they can't actually move at all. They've no energy, they can't move, they're bedbound, and they go to the other end of the spectrum. They get stuck there though, right? And so, you know, I've treated people who've been stuck there for like 8 years, you know, despite the best of medical care. You know, it's only been in the last number of years that it's actually properly diagnosed as an actual illness. For years, it was like a mystery condition, right? Chronic fatigue is like, it's really, I think, you know, there's even comments about it being like, only I forget what way it said, but basically it was one of these mysterious conditions where people were just told, oh, just get yourself out of bed and go back to work, like as if it wasn't even an illness, you know, like it wasn't even a condition. And it's so in terms of bioenergy, it's about bringing that energy, that power back into the solar plexus, getting the energy flowing and moving, and making sure the root chakra is open and flowing. But like I said, it generally is when it comes to that. And they're the top 5 for 30 years of treating bioenergy. They're the top 5 things that came up in terms of the 7 chakras. I'm just getting asked a question here. Which chakra is associated with, I think it said rosacea. Sorry, the message disappeared, but it's the sacral chakra. So the sacral chakra is associated with most ailments. The solar plexus can be associated as well, but the sacral chakra is associated with with skin ailments. And the solar plexus can be as a secondary one, or for things like psoriasis for that. Well, folks, I've gone a little bit over the time, but thank you so much for tuning in today. This year, as I said, we are 30 years into bioenergy, and every year we have our practitioner training course. and it's online at the moment. So we used to do it in Costa Rica, but with all that happened with the traveling, we're teaching the course online. And if you're interested in learning more about studying bioenergy, please check out our website, daltonsbio.com, www.daltonsbio.com, and check out our level 2 training. And because it's 30 years in bioenergy, there's a beautiful 30% of the level 2. For the first time in 30 years, I've given a discount in the level 2. I don't normally do discounts on level 2 just because I like people to everybody takes it at that same value. But in terms of the 30 years, I want to do something special to make it more available to people.